So joining us now to dig into this case and others similar to it is Seth Schackner. He's a former major label executive. Seth, before we get legal, I mean, when you listen to these two songs, do you hear the similarities?
Great to be here, Ashley. Yeah, I do. Not identical, but I do for sure. I think there's somewhat similar.
Yeah. Okay, and I guess in a court of law, you have to figure out, is somewhat similar the same as copying, right? That seems like the crux of what we're discussing here. So Marvin Gaye's family has sued artists before and won. They sued Robin Thicke and Pharrell Williams for Robin's song Blurred Lines. They won $5.3 million and 50% of royalties moving forward. What have you found, though, are the key differences in what I was just talking about in cases where artists are found guilty of copying versus when they're found innocent of just making music that could sound similar?
Well, the usual legal distinction, and I'm not an attorney, but is that, you know, the melody, the composition is really the same or, you know, identical, if you will. And that's typically where it comes. I think the Robin Thicke thing with Pharrell is a little bit of an outlier, to be honest with you.
Okay.
That's usually the key distinction that they look at.
Yeah. And so what's interesting about this case is I heard that Sony hired a musicologist. So first, can you tell me what is a musicologist and how do they figure out? And all they can do is make a report, right? They don't have any legal standing. But they found that, you know, they didn't really think that these two songs were the same. But what is a musicologist and why does their standing matter so much?
Well, this is someone that looks at the underlying chords, the sheet music, actually, if you will. They'll go back to the composition, not so much the actual recording. And in music, those are two separate branches of rights, and they're two different organizations. So they'll probably look at the sheet music and the actual chords that are written to really go into it. And I believe that's what a pure musicologist would focus on.
Yeah, and it's so funny because you would think that this isn't really black and white, but like the sheet music quite literally is black and white. You can look and see if things are identical. So Ed Sheeran, as you know, as many of us know, has been in this position before. He has settled before. He has also won before. In a statement after his 2022 win, he said in part, there's only so many notes and very few chords used in pop music. Coincidence is bound to happen. If 60,000 songs are being released every day on Spotify, there's 22 million songs a year, and there's only 12 notes that are available. Does he make a good point, Seth?
Yeah, I think it's a very valid, you know, excellent point. I think, I don't know, no one owns chords, basically, and I think it's hard to show that people even own chord progressions. I believe that this thing would be called a, kind of a, you know, if you're a musician, basically, there's actually a specific term for chords that are kind of shared or similar amongst lots of different musicians, line cliches, they call it. So, so I think he's actually right, and I think just given the way modern music is composed and just the tons and tons of music that's on Spotify and other streaming services, it's a very legitimate point for sure.
Yeah. Do you worry about this impacting the future of music, which I know sounds dramatic, but that artists can't be as creative if they're sitting in the studio worried about if they're going to end up in a courtroom later?
I don't know if I worry about that. I do think that some of this stuff kind of looks back instead of forward, and it's extremely important to protect artists' rights, and labels and publishers are doing that, and I don't think anyone questions them. But, you know, we're in a new world right now where not just songwriting and composition and production, but, you know, are changing digitally. And I think that speaks to some of what's happening here. But there's this whole wave of, you know, robotically produced tracks from AI, basically, that, you know, none of this stuff even correlates to. That could be a way that, so I worry more about that and kind of trying to move the industry forward and aligning it rather than this stuff, because I think it's subjective, and a lot of it goes into things like long appeals, you know.
Yeah, I think you and I could probably talk 10 minutes about AI, so we'll have to promise to bring you back to chat about that. But for now, Seth Schackner, thank you so much for coming here and providing some insight. We appreciate you.
Great to be here.